I've got a bunch of questions.
This meeting is being recorded.
Nice. I've got a bunch of questions after you can kind of like walk me through everything. And then I will send him the recording if that's okay with you guys. And then, if all being well, we can set up a second one and then kind of like move things along.
No problem. Happy to so.
Perfect. Appreciate it. Thanks for recording it. So again, we had the high level email from Stephen, and I appreciate the introduction, but just kind of like just walk me through how this works. And I've got about 6 or 7 questions, but kind of like walk me through how this works.
And Taimour,
I don't know what that means. How this works? It's just
right, Taimour. Yeah, let me jump in. So Taimour, I went over the money multiplier was the main focus, but also a little bit talking about SBLCs. But the main focus was securing investors' capital to raise capital by securing.
Sure.
Yeah, sorry about that. Let me give you a little bit of context. So right now we're trying to raise $10 million.
Okay.
We've got about 1.5 sitting in the bank right now. We also have a debt funding partner, and our strategy with our company is we're buying $50 million of businesses, which is about $10 million of EBITDA, and we've got a $125 million shared subscription facility, and we're going to IPO. So essentially what we're looking for right now is to raise $10 million of capital, which facilitated with the debt, we can go and acquire all of these companies. And then Stephen kind of shared 3 different strategies with me for like you said, the money multipliers. And we'd been speaking with another company or person who had identified similar situations, but really this is very new to us. Like we've been dealing with investment banks and angel investors and PE funds, you know, right? That kind of thing. So to kind of review these types of investment finance strategies is new to us, essentially. So that's what I mean by how this works.
I understand. I appreciate it. Thanks so much for your valuable time. Should we start with what Stephen pitched you, or should we start with what I would do if I were you?
Go on, let's start with what you would do if you were me first.
We published a book called Structured Finance. I'll go get that copy of that book for sure. But here's kind of like what I would do if I were you. I don't know if you've thought about, or if anybody told you about getting yourself a private banking license. Not a bank account, private bank license.
That's funny you should say that. So the person who we were communicating with, he went and actually did that. So he went, apparently someone walked him through the private banking structure license, and he partnered with someone to do that.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. We went through the whole process with him. Again, his terms are very similar, right? So it was like, hey, if you want to borrow $10 million, you've got to put 10% into the deal, $1 million. We said, fine. Would that sit in escrow? How long? How does that work? How does the debt repayment work, et cetera, et cetera? So we were working with him for a couple of months, and then nothing ever panned out from the legal side. It just, to be honest, it all sounded a load of fluff. We couldn't get the DD done. There was no legal contracts. So it kind of dragged on and on and on. But his story was very similar. Like he's went and partnered with someone who's got a private banking license, a bank out of New Zealand. And he was loaning funds into the US. But then he had his banking license pulled due to the VC, what was it called? The bank that went pop, VC Bank or whatever it was called, that went under. So they pulled his banking license. Nice. So talk me through that then. Talk me through how that would work and how long is that going to take?
So Russ, here's what I want to just tell you for myself. I've been married to my wife, or I've been with her for 15 years, 15. And before I met my wife, I dated a lot of girls before I married her. And my second wife, she's my second wife, which means I also got married before that too. And that's just fact of life, right? So the reason I share that with you is that you may go on a lot of dates, on this idea called private banking licenses, right? And they were all like try to take you to the altar. Eventually, there's got to be one that could stick, really stick like that.
Yeah, right.
Why people choose us versus our alternative options? One reason could be because we are on Trustpilot. We have over 130 reviews. We are a well-branded organization. We have offices in New Zealand, Toronto, Colombia, like that kind of thing. Most of our services, not all, most of our services, we are customers of our own service. So we've kind of like, we drink the Kool-Aid before we offer it to our clients or members like that. So that's a little bit about us, if I can say. I'll tell you a little bit about private bank licenses. So I want you to imagine, my name is also Russ Turner. And I do exactly what you do. Just imagine that. And my house is right across your house. And imagine you made $1 million and I made $1 million, but you had a bank license and I did not. If you go to places like Cayman Islands, Ecuador, Dubai, like places that they sell private bank licenses, your $1 million will get deposited with the central bank. The central bank gives your private bank, not me, your private bank, a line of credit at 10 times multiples. So you get, hi, Sarah. So you get a $10 million line of credit. You can take that $10 million line of credit. I don't know where you live, like in the US.
I live in Austin, yeah.
And then so you go to Wells Fargo, Bank of America, and you say, here's the businesses I want to buy. You know, when you want to buy a house, you put 20% down, the bank loans you the other 80%. You put 20% down and you're putting your $10 million and you get a $40 million loan. It's not free money. It's not, nobody's giving you free money. It's,
I get that.
has to pay the piper. But I want to compare you and me. My name is Russ Turner and I live right across you.
You're a handsome guy.
A nice guy, right? So I got $1 million, but you have a $40 million loan. It's not free money, it's loan. But what could you do with $40 million in form of a loan that I cannot afford to do with $1 million? That's the difference between having a private bank license versus not. So if you talk to Sarah here or Larad, we have been for a while taking high net worth clients. We take them offshore. We spend a week with them. We get a former bank CEO to come in and we train successful businesses on why they should think like becoming a bank, show them all the different programs a bank does behind the scenes, private placement programs, managed by sell programs, overnight counter loans like that, and how the bank makes money. In the book, Structured Finance, I talk about mortgage-backed securities, asset-backed securities, like things like that, and how when you buy these businesses you want to buy, right? The stuff that business does, how do you structure it so it becomes a product that you can make money on and you sell it like a mortgage-backed security? The only difference, there's one difference, is that if you have a bank, private bank account, or sorry, private bank license, you're depositing money with the central bank. You're not depositing with a guy called Steven, who, by the way, he doesn't even have his camera on. It doesn't have his light on. His light is not on. You can't see the guy's face.
Yeah.
Like you would never do that. You know what I mean? It goes into the central bank. You get a line of credit, not Steven, not me, not Sarah. You get a line of credit as multiples like that. So if you want to fast track it, a private bank license for you, I think would make a lot of sense. Now, Sarah and I and my team went to South America. I don't know how long ago. Sarah, how long ago did we go to South America?
2 weeks ago?
No, it wasn't 2 weeks ago. Come on.
Oh, on December.
No, Panama. Panama was, I don't know when.
1 month ago, 1 month.
A month ago. Okay. So a month ago, we were in Panama and we met a lot of bank CEOs who were like, Taimour, why are you promoting private bank licenses? Why don't you partner with us and have us like get that 10x multiple? I don't know if I would want to do that if I were you, but that's something that I would consider if I were you.
Wouldn't there be issues of moving that money from Central America, etc., into the US? Isn't there like regulatory laws and all kinds of banking issues here in the US that would make that super difficult?
I don't know I don't know where the nature of that question comes from, given United States alone sends trillions of dollars through this thing called Panama Canal. And
Yeah,
all of your American banks are in Panama City. I can show you, you can fly down and see it yourself. And so money does move from Panama City and South American banks to US banks every day, every minute of every day. So I don't know about what you just said.
I'm just talking about that money. I guess I'm just looking at it from look, this is all brand new to me. So when you're talking about banking licenses and then, a couple of questions, and then we can kind of get back to what Stephen initially sent as well, because I'd like to cover all of that. I mean, firstly, how long is the process for a bank? Like, how does it work? How does that work? Like, say I wanted to have, I agree with you and say, yes, that would be great, because in order for us to go and do a ton of M&A, which we're currently in the process of doing, right? Like, that would be super helpful for us to have that banking license, and then we could have preferential terms on, loans for doing M&A, right? Like you just highlighted it. So what does that process look like? How long does it take? What does it cost? What's the guarantees? Are there guarantees?
Yeah, so that's a great question. It all depends. There are banks, private banks that are right now for sale. You can get one in Puerto Rico, you can get one in Dominica, like that, and the price could range about $115,000 all the way to a couple of $1 million. And the more you pay money for, the more you get. So let me give you an example. For $100,000, you're probably getting something called a crypto bank. That's this thing called cryptocurrencies. For $2.7 million, you're probably getting a bank that has something called SWIFT capabilities. So it's like money for transportation. For $100, maybe you can get a bicycle. For $1 million, you can get a Lamborghini that comes, you press a button and the hood comes off like that. Same thing with banking, like that. From a time perspective, there are banks that are for sale right now, private banks that are for sale right now, and it's easy to find them. I always recommend hiring a securities attorney to do the vetting of the licenses, the regulator, what the regulator is looking for, like that. And if you were starting from scratch, you can talk to one of the attorneys we use in Cayman Islands. His name is Christopher. He starts with $1 million is what you put up. $300,000 goes into legal fees. It takes 1 to 2 years. But $700,000 goes into what's called a central bank. So the day you start your private bank, you have a line of credit on day one, like that. So from a time perspective, I would say it would take you anywhere between 1 month to 2 years, depending on, you want to buy something off the shelf that somebody else has built and you're inheriting the way they've structured it, or do you want to start from scratch? It's like buying a house. Do you want to build it, or do you want to buy somebody else's house?
I definitely don't have 2 years to wait. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So definitely don't have 2 years to wait. That's definitely not, that can't be a consideration. I mean, like we're in the process. I mean, I wanted to have this call to understand this process before, like I'm engaged with 2 investment banks anyway to raise the 10 million that I need. So I'm just trying to understand
So now let's talk
the
about
validity and
let's talk about.
I mean, I would love, sorry, Taimour, I would love a banking license, right? I would love one. I would love to get a banking license long term. I'd love to do that. Sure.
Yeah. And just so you know, I don't think we're the partner of choice for you. I think we have a lot of competitors. And for your personality type and who you are, I think you're much better suited off. And I'm just being transparent with you. I think you'll be better off working with one of our competitors rather than us, kind of thing, just head off the bat. But that would be one of the things I would do. Now, for raising capital, for what you want to do, if you want to go through the standby letters of credit model, so the multiplier model that Stephen talked about, there's 2 ways that I know of that you could do it. A, you apply for a bank license, or you buy a private bank license. In a few weeks, you got one. And you want to make sure that it multiplies money. Otherwise, I wouldn't put a penny into it. The second version of it is you partner with an organization that has a private bank license, and you know that they're going to get a 10x multiple, you partner with those guys and you say, listen, I'm going to make the deposit with the central bank. So you're never ever sending money to a guy like Steven or Taimour or Sarah. You're always sending money to the central bank. You would want to get copies of transactions where you know they're getting a 10x multiple. And then you have to give the bank a bone. I don't know how else to say that. So the bank will say, I'll take 2x, you take the 8x. That is very, very, very possible. And then that makes a lot of sense. That gives you speed because somebody else has the bank license. They have to deal with the regulator reporting that out. They take 2x, you take 8x. The only thing you then need to be responsible for is that guy will say, I am getting 10x from the bank, from the central bank. You're taking majority of the 10x. How can I make sure that you are going to pay your loan back? And if you're going to invest it with 50 of your best friends who I have no control over, well, I'm not going to do that deal. So if you can structure it so that the bank takes the 10x and they keep 2x and you get 8x, that's an awesome way of structuring it. I do that. If you ask Sarah, that's something that we do for ourselves, for our clients like that. And that's something else that you may want to think about given you're new to this. So that's the bank piece. Now I want to change topics on you.
Sure.
You said you want to get 10 million. You may want to leverage stamp letters of credit. So if you have $1.5 million, that's enough money to put the down payment for wiring fees of a stamp letter of credit. That $1.5 million should go into a law firm, into an escrow account that you can ask for a refund if the issuer cannot issue a stamp letter of credit within a period of time. When I say period of time, I don't mean one day. I don't know any issuer who will want to give you $100 million stamp letter of credit, given they don't even know who you are. But you could go to a law firm and say, can you execute a stamp letter of credit within 60 banking days or something like that? And can I net out $10 million? That's something we help our clients with, where we go bring the issuer, the law firm, what's referred to as a monetizer, and I put up the money for the issuing of the stamp letter of credit. I go bring the monetizer, the law firm go brings the issuer. The client has to put money up. Like I'm not in the business of taking a homeless person and getting them millions of dollars. So the client has to put up at minimum $1.5 million for what's called the wiring fees. And it's secured in a client's in a law firm escrow account. It only gets used when the issue of the stamp letter of credit is going to a monetizer. And that only happens after the law firm, me and the client have seen the contract on the issuing and the monetizing side, and we can make sure there's a profit that's to be generated. I don't know if that makes sense. That
does make sense.
Something I would do. It's nothing in life is risk-free, but banking instruments, you're dealing with two banks. You're dealing with a bank that's issuing instruments. You're dealing with a bank that's monetizing the instrument. You're not working with people with a Gmail address. You know, and banking is a regulated industry.
What's the risk? It's funny that you say, you know, you're not going to give a homeless person $100 million. That's funny. But what's the inherent risk here? Like to put up those fees, you know, you said nothing is risk free, and I understand that. I'm just trying to get a deeper understanding from you.
Yeah, I understand. So the risks are, one is market risks. So if some guy called Putin invades a country called Ukraine, and the US Federal Reserve bans the Russian central banks like that, now stamp letters of credit around the world get halted. And everybody has to go through investigations to make sure nobody's funding a Russian oligarch. The only reason I said that to you is because I live this every day of my life. If you ask Sarah, if you ask my CEO, how we go to create real wealth for ourselves and our company is we do this exact same thing. We buy or lease stamp letters of credit from issuers. We monetize it with, we go to a monetizer to cash it out. So that's one inherited risk, is just market risk, like that.
Okay.
And that's out of my control. I can't control Putin. I certainly can't control the US Federal Reserve. So that's the,
For sure.
so the impact of that is delays, a long delay that occurs, but that's that. Other risks could include you're working with an issuer who's not legitimate. We have a process in how we go through in finding legitimate issuers and legitimate monetizers. And the truth is that because we do this for ourselves, there's 3 issuers that I have a relationship with. I know each one of them. There's 2 monetizers that I have a relationship with. I know both of them. So I'm operating in a very close circle of friends and family, if I can say that way. But for somebody who's new, and if you don't have those banking relationships, your risks would be beyond the market risk. It would be, is the issuer real? Are they going to issue a real instrument? And is a monetizer real? And do they have the right credit facilities to pay for the instrument? Those are the 3 risks.
Okay,
Market risk, is issuer risk, is a monetizer real? Now, I can tell you from my personal experience in the past 6 months, this thing of going against that matter of credit, monetizing it is exponentially growing. It's not growing linearly, it's exponentially growing. In the last 6 months, from my perspective, I have clients who are real estate developers in Netherlands, in United States, in places like that. And what they are experiencing is banks are becoming tougher to loan money out. Interest rates are going up, prices of real estate are stable or declining. And then in the last month, we had 2 clients, real estate developers, who said, our investors walked out. Our investors simply walked out. The numbers just don't make sense. So a lot of these people looking for capital are looking for alternative financing models. So that's the exponential growth that I'm seeing from a let's go leverage that amount of credit and cash it out.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, that's a lot of information. So how long have you guys been doing this? This is super interesting. I'd love to get my partner on a call with you. He'd love you, Taimour. He'd think you're amazing. And just kind of, I don't know how much Stephen shared with you, but just to kind of give you an overview of kind of where we are. I know I'm wearing a baseball cap, but I just come from the gym. So our project is we're acquiring 16 health, beauty, wellness e-commerce brands.
Yeah.
To create an enterprise value of $1 billion.
Wow.
We've already secured $125 million signed shared subscription facility agreement with GEM from New York, Global Emerging Markets. We've got a pre-approved OTC shell. We've raised 1.75 million. We've got a term sheet from e-commerce lending to loan us 70% of all of our acquisitions. We've got all of our pipelines and deals mapped out to $10 million of EBITDA, which gets us to listing. We've acquired our first company. We've got operational infrastructure stuff. So I know that maybe I look like a homeless person, but we're quite far down the road right now when it comes to kind of this project.
Yeah.
And this 10 million is the missing piece, right? Like we've turned down a term sheet last week from Del Morgan & Co. Those guys have raised 300 billion. They were going to go and raise the 50 million for us. We turned that down because we didn't want dilution on the project, and we don't need 50 million. We need 10.
Yeah.
10 gets us everything we need in order to execute on our acquisitions, right? And my business partner, who you haven't met, he's again, this is why this is kind of a little new to us. So we want to like converse with you guys. He's done $30 billion of M&A in their 31-year history. So we've got a very extensive management team structure, and we've had people sign off on 9 figures. So this is very, very new to us. And while he knows of private banking and understands this kind of stuff, it's the first time we've ever been exposed to it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where we are right now. So yeah, this is very interesting. Sure.
We have a service that you and your partner might be interested in, and it's called a trusted advisory service. First of all, I just want to tell you, we have a lot of clients just like you. We have a guy called Brett, and he does exactly what you do, but he's not doing beauty salons. He's doing dental practices. He runs Facebook ads. for people that want to sell their dental practices. He merges them together and he flips. He groups them together and he flips them. So
roll up. So he rolls them up and then he sells them. Yeah.
Like that. So that we have Brett, we have GK. He runs $1 billion fund. So a lot of our clients are people just like you. And then what we do with every one of them varies, but they're all in the world of financing. And what might be useful for you in our trusted advisory service is through Stephen. This has to be done through Stephen. We become part of your virtual team, if I can say that way, because you don't have a lot of the know-hows for how to structure transactions. You probably don't have banking relationships. You probably don't have the guy who does insurance wraps. And so we look at all the transactions that you have in your pipeline. What is it you're missing? And then we go to work to structure that out. So can I, for instance, leverage some of my banking programs to give you the $10 million in 60 banking days as an example, right? And then can I then, now that you have your $10 million and you have everything else, can I, if this makes sense, set up something called a trust for you? But it'll be an offshore trust that's not based in the US, because you guys run a religion beyond Christianity and it's called suing people. You walk across the street in the United States, you like to guys sue each other all day long. Can we set up a structure offshore where the asset is not held in the US and the US judge doesn't have control over that? And then once we have an offshore trust, can we populate with $10 million of assets? And once I have the $10 million of assets, can I apply for something called private bank license? Because a guy who's got a trust has $10 million of assets, it makes a lot of sense for a regulator to give that organization a bank license. So this is not about working with a guy who's got a bank account in Australia, New Zealand, or Hong Kong, or working with a guy who's got a Gmail or Hotmail address. It's all about your company having a private bank license. That makes a lot of sense, right? And then if you have a trust, if you have the right trust, where the asset, there's a trustee on it, and they can validate the value of the trust, the trustee can go get you a loan on the value of the trust. So these are some things that's new to you. So I don't want to overwhelm you, but if you were as part of your virtual team, I think there's a lot of not creative things we would do, but standbys or credit, private placement programs, buying, selling SBLCs. These things have been in existence for 60 years, hundreds of years, that. So it's nothing new that we bring it to the table. It's just the know-how on how do you structure these things and make a shitload of money on it.
That is the goal for sure. Yeah. Like I always knew that there was creative ways within the banking world, but I've never, that's not been my world, right? Like mine is the e-commerce digital world. That's why
listen, that piece from the clients that I have that are like you is the most important piece of it. Because if you don't get the digital piece right, you're not going to get leads. You're not going to get transactions, right? So that's like the most important part of it. So thank you for being a big part of the package.
Man, this is so interesting. So I would, again, I appreciate you, Stephen, for making the introduction. I would love to set up a secondary call with my partner. You'd love him, Taimour. You really would. He's a really sharp, smart guy. What was your book? Show me your book again, please.
You can just Google me on Amazon and you'll see all my books. But this one I think will be most relevant to you. It's called Structured Finance Demystified. And you'll learn things like mortgage-backed securities, asset-backed. So for what you're doing, it'll be asset-backed securities. And how do you package whatever you're looking at in your pipeline, turn it into something that's called an asset-backed security? How do you then put it into something called a special purpose vehicle and start selling it to investor groups with an insurance wrap on it? That by itself will give you cash flow that you may not need. The part that makes it magical is if you, not Stephen, not me, have a bank license. because this cash flow gets a 10x multiples every single time.
Right.
And please don't believe anything I have to tell you. You can fact check everything I'm telling you.
For sure. No, I appreciate that. Oh, where have you gone? There we go.
And there
Okay,
are some
great.
great private banks available for sale today in Puerto Rico, by the way. Just want to tell you that. If you want to keep it
Okay.
all American. I don't know if you're a Trump
Hey,
supporter,
I mean,
but let's
I-
make America great thing as Puerto Rican banks.
I'm not a Trump supporter, but I mean, look, if that is an option, we would explore that for sure. I mean, I'm not sure we have enough capital in order to purchase it, but I mean, look, we are super open to working with you guys. Obviously, you know what you're doing. I'll be seeing Stephen down in Miami in a couple of weeks anyway, but I'd love to explore this further with you guys, and I'd love to loop in Carl. I think he'd be blown away by this.
100%. So maybe as a next step, next week at some point that's convenient, just so you know, for purpose of this conversation, we work for Stephen. Like 90% of our business comes through trusted partners like Stephen. So I can only be on calls with you when Stephen's on the call. If you call me and Stephen's not on the call, I'll politely have to tell you I'm busy. And call me back when Stephen's on the phone. So maybe we can have a follow-up call next week when you and your partner are free. And then I'll send you a copy. I'll send a copy of this recording to Steven because I don't have your contact information, nor do I need to at this point. And then a part where we can start from is maybe if you like to explore the standard of credit model, I can have the law firm that we work with, that they represent the client, not us, to talk about standard of credit. They can give you examples of how we're doing it ourselves within AFG. So we have experience in doing this ourselves. That's a big claim our competitors cannot make.
Yeah,
that's a way to get you the 10M, but the 10M is non-recourse loan. There's no loans, there's no shareholders on it. There's nobody who wants to take your shares in your company that is your 10M to have. And then once you have that coming in, then I think the next logical thing is to think about having a trust. And then after that is bank licenses. And then it's how do you structure everything you're doing, and like that. I think that would be
I agree. I mean, that's a logical step. That would be wonderful to be looped in to the legals on from your guys, and then just to kind of walk through that process would be great. And I think that makes a lot of sense. The way that you've processed it out, that makes a lot of sense. Not only with this project that we have. So we're being backed by GEM, Global Emerging Markets, to the tune of $6 billion over the next 10 years. Right? They want us to go and not only do this project, they want us to go and do another 9 after this. So they're willing to back us with those funds. But all those funds are dependent on us being listed, right? We only access that capital when we become listed. But we have the backing of those guys, so it makes sense to go down the road that you've suggested, because obviously we will be doing quite a lot of M&A, and we've also got we've got one sort of private PE fund, which we have internally in our group, but we're also doing 6 other roll-up projects in home services, medical, engineering, manufacturing. So we've got a broad scope of everything that we're doing. So this would make a lot of sense, to be honest, Taimour, what you're suggesting.
Yeah, so first we will give you a project plan, and it'll be baby steps, baby steps, baby steps. Let me arrange a 10 million first. Let me then set up the trust. Then let me do this, let me do that. And then Sarah here is coordinating an event, the date. Unfortunately, we don't have the date at this moment, but it's in Panama. Not Panama City, but somewhere in Panama, where you get invited to go to some kind of a cruise or hotel or something fancy. Sarah has very expensive taste, just so you know. Something very but you go there, you'll meet a lot of bank CEOs that we currently work with, and you can interview the banks. Are you a CEO or are you a manager? Prove to me like that. If I was going to deposit money with the central bank, how would that work? But you're meeting bank CEOs. And that's a religion that we are, because it's not as easy as it sounds on a private bank license like that. That could be a pathway you might be interested in.
Okay, for sure. All right, this has been great. I really appreciate your time and your knowledge and you walking me through these steps. Yeah, let's take the next steps and let's go from there for sure. When Stephen's free, we'll coordinate with Stephen. Yeah, if you could send me the record or send the recording to Stephen, that would be great. And then loop in the legals as we talked about, so we can kind of like verify that you guys have done these transactions and how it works, and then let's go from there for sure. We're totally open to that. Where are you based? Where are you based, Taimour?
I'm based in Toronto. Sarah's based in Colombia. Our CEO Russ is based in New Zealand. We have quite a few of our staff members that associates in New Zealand. So somebody bombs New Zealand, I don't know what I would do. God forbid.
Oh God.
But bombing Toronto is no problem. The company will function.
That's funny. All right, Taimour. I really appreciate your time. It's been an absolute pleasure. Pleasure to meet you, Sarah. Stephen, thank you. And let's definitely let's explore this. I'm tentatively excited.
Awesome. Thank you for
I'm really glad that you got exposed, Ross, because I was going to share this with Craig and Jonathan as well. And when you mentioned about them potentially participating, in your project too, that's why I was glad you got exposed to this, for Miami. We can talk about it.
Yeah, for sure. So Jonathan's coming on as one of the advisors. So I'll see him down in Miami. So that will be a big deal. But yeah, I mean, being exposed to all of this, especially in the M&A space that me and my partner are in, this, to be honest, this is a conversation that we've had and a conversation that I've had with my attorney last week. And I even said to him, I was like, how hard can it be to buy a fucking bank? I'm like, let's figure this out. How hard can it be? It must be easy not easy, but there must be a process, right?
So I have something to share with you. Buying a bank is not that difficult, assuming you don't have any criminal records at that, because any regulator will do a lot of deep background checks on you and your partners at that. When you're buying a bank, you're inheriting that person's risk. And especially these banks that lend money during COVID, the banks got a lot of cash from the government and whatever else to loan money out to people that don't qualify for loans. My opinion, this is not a fact. Earlier today, I told you can fact check everything I'm about to tell you. Now I'm telling you opinion. You can't fact check what I'm about to tell you. But my opinion is that you're going to see a lot of banks defaulting this year for sure. And so if I was going to go bank shopping on like buying something off the shelf, I'd probably want to do it early next year, because I'll see a lot of default stuff and you can buy assets 10 cents over the dollar. Now, I run a religion called buy a private bank license. And that is like, Christianity, there's like Catholicism, there's Protestants, Jehovah's Witnesses. By the time you go to Austin, it's like really different too. Private banking is like that, but it's really like that, right? It's like, it doesn't feel like retail banking at all. Private banking is exponentially increasing, especially with the failure of a lot of these local banks in the United States and worldwide. There was a paper article published in Canada's version of New York Times called Globe and Mail. I can send you a copy of it. Sarah, I think, has a copy of it too. Talks about how it's called shadow banking, or private banking is exponentially on the rise. You get to control your own money. You get your 10x multiple. So it's definitely something that's really taking off.
For sure. All right, perfect. Yeah, if you could send me that as well, that would be interesting to read. All right, I really appreciate your time. Let's move this forward. Stephen, you just forward me over everything that Taimour sends to you. I'll send that to Carl, and then we'll circle back and we'll organize a time next week, and we'll really get into it. I'll probably send Stephen over some questions and stuff that we had, and he can send those over to you, Taimour, and then that can be like a prep for the next call, if that's okay.
100%. Happy to do so.
Perfect. All right, guys. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Appreciate your time.
Thanks
Stephen.
Okay,
appreciate it. Nice to meet you, Taimour. Nice to meet you, Sarah.
Stephen, if you can hang around, and Sarah, that'll be great.
Yes, sir.
Russ,
yes, sir.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Ross.
See you guys. Thanks, bye.
Thank you. Let me stop the recording.